If you thought tornadoes were scary, then you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait until you hear about haboobs. These enormous dust storms feature a massive wall of dust that races across the landscape at high speed, kicking up so much dirt that visibility can plummet to zero, and they can be big, very big. Some have been known to stretch for hundreds of miles. So how do these dust giants form? How long do they last? And where on earth can you find them? Let's take a deep dive into the world of haboobs. A haboob is a dust storm so intense that it forms its own wall of dust that moves across the landscape like a raging beast. They're known for their sheer size and the speed at which they can move, reducing visibility to near zero and causing all sorts of chaos in their wake. The word haboob itself comes from Arabic and roughly translates to blowing or blasting furiously. And that's pretty much sums up the ferocity of these storms. So how do these gigantic dust storms actually form? Well, it all starts with thunderstorms. As the storm clouds build and grow, they produce powerful downdrafts. These are essentially columns of air that rush downward from the clouds at incredible speeds. When these downdrafts hit the ground, they send a shockwave of air outwards in all directions. This outward-moving air then sucks up dust and debris from the ground, forming a massive wall of dust that is a haboob. The strength of the downdrafts is what determines the intensity of the haboob, and these downdrafts can be incredibly strong, reaching speeds of 80 miles per hour or more. Once these dust-laden winds start moving, they can travel incredibly quickly, sometimes reaching speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour. As the haboob races across the landscape, it can cause all sorts of havoc. Visibility can drop to near zero, making it difficult or even impossible to see. This can make driving extremely dangerous and often leads to highway closures. Flights can also be grounded due to the dust storm, which can cause major disruptions to air travel. Now let's talk about where these supercharged dust storms are most likely to occur. And the answer might surprise you. Haboobs are most commonly associated with the Sahara Desert in Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. But don't think for a second that these storms are limited to just deserts. They can pop up in other arid regions too. If you live in Arizona, you're probably already familiar with the occasional haboob that rolls through the state. In fact, Arizona is one of the most affected areas in the United States. When it comes to these intense dust storms, why does this happen? Well, it's all about the weather. Arizona's desert climate is hot and dry, which creates the perfect condition for thunderstorms to form. And as we know, thunderstorms are the main ingredient in the formation of haboobs. These storms usually form in the afternoon when the sun has had a chance to heat the ground. The air rises rapidly, creating strong updrafts. When these updrafts are strong enough, they can lift dust and debris from the ground, forming the iconic dust cloud that is a hallmark of a haboob. But haboobs aren't limited to the Sonoran Desert. They've also been known to strike parts of Texas, New Mexico, and Nevada. These storms are most common in the spring and summer months when the weather is hot and dry. While haboobs may be a common sight in places like Arizona, that doesn't make them any less dangerous. One of the scariest things about haboobs is how suddenly they can appear. One minute the sky may be clear, and the next minute a massive wall of dust is bearing down on you. In some cases, visibility can drop from 10 miles to less than a quarter of a mile in just a few minutes. This sudden change can be disorienting and dangerous, especially for drivers who may not have time to react. That's why if you find yourself in a haboob, it's important to pull over and wait for the storm to pass rather than trying to drive through it. Even if you do, it will feel like you're driving through a thick fog. In addition to the disorientation that these storms can cause, they can also pose a serious threat to your health. The fine particles of dust that are kicked up into the air can be harmful to breathe in and can exacerbate existing respiratory conditions. For people with asthma, this can trigger an asthma attack, while those with lung cancer may find their symptoms worsen. Children and the elderly are particularly vulnerable to the effects of haboobs, so those with pre-existing heart or lung conditions. The tiny particles in the dust can penetrate deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream, leading to a range of health problems, from respiratory issues to cardiovascular disease. In extreme cases, exposure to these particles has been linked to premature death. Okay, so now that we know how they form, where they occur, and the potential dangers they pose, let's take a closer look at the science behind these behemoth dust storms. First off, let's talk about their size. We're talking truly gargantuan here. Haboobs can stretch for hundreds of miles, covering vast stretches of land in their path. Just imagine being caught in a dust cloud that's bigger than entire cities. It's a daunting thought. And then there's the height of these dust walls. They can reach incredible heights, towering thousands of feet into the sky. It's like having a mini mountain range made of dust. The sheer volume of material that's moved around during a haboob is mind-boggling. These storms are capable of moving millions of tons of dust and debris, leaving behind a landscape that looks like something out of a science fiction movie. Now, let's talk about speed. Haboobs are known for their ability to race across the landscape at high speeds, sometimes reaching over 60 miles per hour. That's faster than most cars can drive. Being caught in a haboob is like being in a real-life dust cloud, like those you see in old Western movies. The wind can be so strong that it feels like you're in a tornado. And the dust can be so thick that visibility drops to near zero. It's an experience that's both terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. Another fascinating aspect of these storms is the way they interact with the environment around them. The intense winds can cause all sorts of damage, knocking over trees, breaking windows, and even lifting heavy objects off the ground. The dust itself can cause problems, reducing air quality and making it difficult to breathe. It can also cause power outages when it accumulates on electrical equipment. Finally, let's talk about how long these dust storms typically last. The duration of a haboob can vary widely depending on the weather conditions. Sometimes they can last for only a few minutes, while in other cases, they can persist for several hours. It's like trying to predict the weather. You never quite know what you're going to get. One of the most surprising facts about haboobs is that they can travel over 100 kilometers in a very short amount of time. This is because the strong winds that carry the dust also move the storm itself. So it's like the dust cloud is chasing the wind. This can make the haboob feel even more intense, as it can catch people off guard and leave them with little time to prepare. The duration and scale of a haboob can vary significantly, depending on factors such as wind speed, terrain, and atmospheric conditions. While haboobs in the Sahara can last for days and cover vast areas, haboobs in North America tend to be smaller and shorter-lived. However, they can still cause significant disruption to traffic and even lead to power outages. In conclusion, haboobs are a fascinating and sometimes terrifying natural phenomenon. From their sudden appearance to their incredible size and speed, these dust storms are a force to be reckoned with. While they may be a common sight in places like Arizona, it's important to remember that they can also be dangerous. So, if you ever find yourself in the path of a haboob, be sure to take the necessary precautions. Stay safe. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed the video. See you next time.